What I have here is a hole from a doorknob. I have actually patched this before, so today I want to actually do a much better job, a more permanent job. If I wasn't concerned about this happening again as much as I am, I could just do a simple repair. I could just take some of this self-adhesive mesh tape, extra strength, pre-fill this hole with joint compound, and then coat it with this tape and then feather it in, and I could hide that quite easily. But I've already done something similar to that in the past, and they keep hitting this wall. I want to make it extra strong because I'm going to put a bumper on this wall. So that way when the doorknob does hit the wall, it's going to hit this bumper and not damage the wall. It has a self-adhesive backer on it that I could just stick to the paint, but I'm a little concerned about that not sticking permanently and maybe this not being strong enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a larger hole here and put some wood blocking behind it, and then a new piece of drywall. And after it's all taped and painted, then I'm going to put this on, and I'll even be able to put a screw through the center of it to hold it in place. What I have here are these little magnetic stud finders. There's actually a drywall screw here and here, so that helps me locate where the stud is. And this hole is actually quite close to this 2x4 in this wall. What I'm planning on doing is I'm actually going to put this piece of wood behind the drywall. So I'm going to cut a hole smaller than this, then I'm going to slide it up in there and screw it through the drywall into this piece of wood. Okay, so the edge of the stud is right there. So I'm just going to take my block of wood. Now I can mark out where I believe the edge of the stud is. And the hole I'm going to make smaller, so I'm going to cut it like here and here, and maybe a little short right here as well. And we'll see if I can get that block of wood to fit in there. What I'm discovering here is I think there's already a block of wood behind here from when it was repaired one other time. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, there's something in there. Yep, there's a block of wood. Yep. See, they had done it before, but the block of wood wasn't actually centered where the door was hitting. And because there was no door stop, the damage still occurs. So I've got a larger piece of wood that I'm going to be able to slide up in here and use it as my backer. But what I want to do is I want to give this a little bit more strength. And I don't always do this, but because I want to make it a little stronger, I'm actually going to cut this drywall on this stud so I can fasten the repair piece to a stud as well as to that backer. So I'm just taking a sharp knife. I'm going to put my board behind there, which I'm going to screw through the drywall into this, and then when I put the drywall on, I'll screw into this as well as that stud. It'll be nice and solid. I actually have the board ready to go that I'm going to put in here, and what I've done, I'm going to slide it up into this pocket, but I won't be able to hold it when it's in there, so I actually put a screw in there as a little handle. So this slides up in there. Then I'm just dividing it up and opening, and I'm going to fasten it in place with some drywall screws. So that's drawing it up nice and tight. Okay, now I can remove this handle, and I've already cut a piece of drywall, and let's just see if it's going to fit. There, that's a nice fit. Now I'll just screw right into the block that I put behind the wall. And I'm going to screw this edge right here now because that's where the stud is. I want to secure the drywall through that stud. Now I'm going to apply the tape. I like to use mesh tape for this. You can see I do have a little bit of gaps. I'm not even going to refill them because the mesh tape is porous, so I'll be able to push the compound right through it and fill those gaps. Now I don't really like lapping this tape because it has a little bit of thickness to it. So you see what I'm doing, I'm just putting it on and cutting it right along that other tape so that I'm not creating any more of a bump. There you go, and that's all ready for me to start taping. I'm going to mix up some setting compound. Although you wouldn't have to use setting compound, I like to use it because I'm going to be able to get multiple coats on this today. What I'm doing now is I'm going to mix up some setting compound. I've added a little water to this pan, and I'm going to sprinkle in some Easy Sand 90. And I'm just going to stir it up, see what we get here. It's a little bit dry, just going to add a little bit of water to it. That's a little thick, but that's kind of what I want because this is a small repair, and it's going to work out just fine. That thickness is ideal. As I put the compound in, I'm going to be putting quite a bit of pressure because I want to actually fill in that gap. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is go around the entire perimeter of this patch and push the compound through the tape and into that gap that I have there. Now that I've got that done, I'm just going to fill in this recess. Actually, the patch is a little bit recessed. So I'm just going to fill that in and start feathering the edges out. Like I said, this is a setting compound, so it's going to set up in about 90 minutes. And I'll be able to put another coat on it. So I can put it on pretty heavy. That's the beauty of a setting compound. You don't have to worry about putting it on too heavy. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm keeping it nice and tight. I'm trying not to create a big bump here. And I'm just feathering those outside edges in with my taping knife. It's the only tool I'm really using. I kind of like the amount of compound I have on there right now. Now I'm just going to start smoothing it, just pulling my knife across it gently, smoothing it out, keeping it as thin as possible. Okay, I'm liking that. All right, the setting compound is pretty much set up. I can tap it with my hand. It's not leaving any marks. But it is wet still, so it's a little bit sensitive. But it's definitely fine for me to go ahead and put another coat over it. But what I'm going to use now is the lightweight compound to apply a finish coat over the top of this. I'll probably need more than one coat. So what my goal here is going to be to feather it out in a larger diameter and really not build the center up at all, just a very fine amount, and really blend this in and make it look as good as possible. So I'll start out by just applying the compound. And like I said, I'm enlarging it So I'll start doing that right away. I'm not even worried about smoothing anything out yet, just putting the compound on. Now I'm going to just work it around the edges a little bit. All right, I'm happy. I think I have enough compound on there. Now I could get this looking pretty good just with my 6-inch knife smoothing it out, but I want to get it to looking as good as possible. So what I'm going to bring in here now is my 12-inch taping knife. I'm going to use this to smooth it out. This is going to do a really nice job. What I do with this tool is it's easy to bend. So I have a little bend in the knife itself, and the working edge is the convex side. In other words, when I put it against the joint compound, the ends of the knife are slightly lifted off the compound, and that helps leave less tool marks. So let me see what happens. Just going to pull it across, feathering that edge out. So I feather that outside edge out. Do the same thing around the rest of it. Got it nice and tight. Now I'm just going to pull the knife across to gently smoothing it out. When I smooth compound, I keep the trowel or the taping knife nice and flat. See how flat that is? I'm not removing much compound at all. I'm simply pulling it across without putting very much pressure at all. And this allows me to smooth the compound out and get it as flat as possible. Okay, that's probably as good as I'm going to be able to get it today. Of course, you can still see tool marks and little ridges, and the edges aren't perfect, but I have a nice fill. I've enlarged it quite a bit. It's pretty flat. I haven't built it up in the center at all, and I just feathered the edges out. And that was my goal for. All right, the joint compound is nice and dry, and it's looking pretty good. It's not a big bump, hardly at all. I'm going to sand it with a sanding sponge just to get knock down the tool marks and these little bubbled areas I have here. All right, so what I've got here is I've got all the edges feathered out real nice, and I got rid of all the tool marks. I'm ready for the finished coat. What I'm using for the finish coat over this repair is the same compound that I used before, which is the lightweight joint compound, pre-mixed stuff, that I did thin down a little bit, but not too much at all. So first thing I'm going to do is actually apply the compound. Just coating the whole thing. Once again, widening it out just a little bit more because we want to blend this in. Just applying it with my 6-inch knife. I could have actually applied it with the wider knife, but it's a small patch here, so it doesn't matter that much. Applying a generous amount of compound because I'm going to be smoothing it out, removing it as necessary. Okay, I've got the compound on. Now I'm going to start smoothing it, and I'm using my 12-inch knife once again. And really all I'm trying to do here is get rid of any tool mark, keep the edges nice and feathered in, and fill areas that need filling. So I'm removing the compound, but I may be putting more compound on just as needed. As I do this, I'll see what I need to do. I'm smoothing those edges in real nice and tight. Now I'm going to work on the middle here. See that there's a spot right there I'm not crazy about. So putting a little bit more compound on it. Keep in mind, I am going to be sanding this, so I want to get it as smooth as possible, but if I do have a little bit of a tool mark or something, it's not going to matter. That will sand out. The key thing I want to do is make sure I have enough compound on here so that this can definitely be my last coat over this. So if I have it a little heavy in spots, that's better than having it a little thin in spots. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sanding. I have this sanding sponge. This is really great for sanding, and that's all I need for this situation. The back side is a little coarser, and this side here is a little finer. I'm just going to start sanding it in, blending the edges in. Looking real good. A lot of times I like to just run my hand across the surface. By doing that, I can feel any ripples or bumps that I need to sand out. There you go, invisible repair. I like to paint the whole surface. I don't just paint the patch, I paint the whole wall. I still got a little cutting in to do. When I'm done with that, it'll be a really nice job. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm putting this doorstop. The doorknob is actually going to bump into this later. It does have a self-adhesive piece on the back, which I'm not going to use. I'm just going to put a screw through that hole into the blocking that I put behind the wall. But I want to get it centered right where the knob itself is going to hit. So right there is exactly where the knob is going to be hitting. So now I'm just going to remove the doorknob. And I'm going to screw it right into place. There, now, so the knob is going to be hitting that, and because I have solid blocking behind it, when it hits it, it's not going to push through the drywall. That hole is not going to come back.